All right, joining me now is the Democratic Senator Peter Welch of Vermont. He's a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, thank you for being with us this morning. Got a lot of stuff to cover with you, especially given your expertise with the Judiciary Committee and the conversation that I had with Professor Roosevelt a little while ago. But let's get right to Project 2025 for the moment. The Heritage Foundation president, Kevin Roberts, has said, quote, "We're in the process of a second American revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be," end quote, which sounds a little like a veiled threat and sounds like it leans into this violence that Donald Trump brings up all the time. But how do you respond to that and the weirdness around Project 2025? It's out there. Donald Trump now trying to distance himself from the organization and from Project 2025, which is an impossibility because it's a creature of the very people who surrounded and will surround Donald Trump.
Well, first of all, there's nothing veiled about that threat. That is a real threat. What we saw with January 6th was the adoption by the Trump folks, his supporters, of violence as a tool of political persuasion. And I really appreciate you going through that 2025 because it is extremely radical. It is going to get rid of 50,000 civil servants to put in ideologically committed Trumpites. And the goal is to totally remake in their own image, not in a democratic image, in their own image, a government that they want. And that would include, by the way, a few more Supreme Court justices to join the radical right. Also, that you said veiled threat. There's nothing veiled about that. That is an indication, Steve Bannon said it, that the process will be peaceful unless there's resistance. And resistance then may necessitate violence. So this gets back to why this question of our candidacy and what's going on and what happened with the debate is so urgent. The existential challenge for this country, and certainly for the Democratic Party as the main opposition to Trump, is to beat Trump. We have to win this election.
Stuart Stevens yesterday on the show from the Lincoln Project was saying that what might help Democrats, in addition to emphasizing policy successes and the fight against the limitations on abortion, is to lean into Project 2025, which is a big project because it's 900 pages. It's dense. It's a lot of stuff. People are not all that likely to read it. But do you think there's benefit in, as somebody who runs for office, as somebody who has to deal with constituents, is there benefit in trying to spell this out for Americans to say, your vote, even if it's a protest vote against Joe Biden, could end up voting for this very, very dangerous platform?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Project 2025 is the blueprint. And that is sort of the government in waiting if Donald Trump is reelected. And what's so dangerous about Trump this time, even more than last time, is he came in with some people and made mistakes. Like he put in a patriot like General Mattis to be in charge of the military. He's not going to make that mistake again. It's going to be yes men and yes women. And they are laying out the agenda they want from day one, and they've been working on it very hard. So talking about this is very, very important. Winning is the most essential. And we've got this situation now in the party where we are dealing with the age question that it was intensified as a result of that debate on last Thursday.
And how do you think that should be handled at this point? We understand that some of your Senate colleagues, or Mark Warner at least, of Virginia, is attempting to assemble some Senate Democrats to have a conversation with the president. What's your sense of how this should play out in a way that allows us to focus on actual threats to democracy and not go down too many rabbit holes for too long?
All right, here's the situation for us in the Democratic Party. We love Joe Biden. No one more than the state of Vermont. He got his highest percentage here. He is really generous and kind. He's been a very effective president, best agenda, I think, since LBJ. And he beat Trump. And the question now is the age question. When age casts its gaze on any of us, we all resist. But age will have its way. We all succumb. And we have to have, number one, a commitment to winning. Number two, that requires us to address how best do we win, what is our best candidate in the given situation. And it has to be somebody that can win in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So we as a party have a loyalty to one another and to the party, but the party has to have, first and foremost, the loyalty to serving the people of this country. And the job for our party is to defeat Donald Trump.
What's the timeline on this? How long can Democrats afford to be continuing to have this discussion?
I think just a couple of weeks. Now, first of all, it's going to be President Biden's decision. You know, he did a great job, and he was elected as he's the overwhelming selection of Democrats to be the nominee. And now we have this very unusual situation, unprecedented really, where there's a lot of questions about age. Those questions were there going into the debate. They've been intensified coming out. So if we're honest with ourselves and acknowledge that the American people have a question, we have to deal with that. And, you know, in the Stephanopoulos interview, the president, I think, was suggesting if the Lord Almighty came down, he might listen. But the bottom line here is it is Sunday. But bottom line, this is not a decision for Lord Almighty. This is a real world decision for real world people in politics and who care about our country to decide what we think is the best path forward. And it has to be the best path to give us the best chance of keeping Donald Trump in Project 2025 out of the White House.
Okay, so you said it shouldn't go on for more than a couple of weeks. It will be Joe Biden's decision, and the best path forward is the path that's going to allow to make sure that Donald Trump is defeated. Does that lead you to a conclusion as to what decision President Biden should make?
Well, I certainly have thoughts about it, but one of the things that I do think we owe President Biden is the respect that he's earned through a lifetime of service where he's always made his decisions through thick and thin, through personal tragedy and political setback. His decisions have always been what's best for the country. And that's where I hope the president, his advisors, don't refer to the Lord Almighty. They start listening to Democratic voters. They start listening to people in politics, in the Senate, in the House, take that into consideration and take their time. But at the end of the day, make that decision on their honest assessment of what is best for the country to keep Donald Trump in Project 2025 out, way out of the White House.
Senator Peter Welch, good to see you. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.